wow, they're gonna make a MicroStrategy, a Bitcoin treasury play in Hong Kong. In mainland China, the fervor for Bitcoin, for crypto, for any of these investments is it's immense. If there actually is a vehicle and it's unlocked for institutions to invest in Bitcoin, it'll be a massive home run. And I think we have that through Nakamoto and their position with Moon Inc.
You think this could be even bigger in meteoric rise than even MetaPlanet?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you look at the biggest markets in the world, it really is US and China.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special guest in the house today. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Zhang. Kevin Zhang was just announced head of Asia for Nakamoto. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Carlos.
Yeah, so I heard you have a really interesting origin story in Bitcoin, so I'd love to hear some more about that.
Sure. So yeah, my background, I grew up as a Chinese American here in the US, and I knew that for a career, I wanted to do something that was Sino-American. And I think I got extremely lucky in falling into Bitcoin. But I'll admit that I was very mid-curve about it when I first heard about Bitcoin. When I was in college, a bunch of my fraternity brothers, they were participating in all the paraphernalia they could get off the Silk Road.
Sure.
And back then, I wasn't one of the cool kids, so I loved my video games. I was like, oh, wow, maybe Bitcoin really is just used for drugs, and it's a quick magic internet money fad. But it wasn't until I kind of spent a couple years after graduation working corporate finance that I realized, man, I want to do something that I'm actually passionate about. Corporate bureaucracy was killing me. I knew I wanted something with economics, finance, working something as Sino-American, helping US businesses find success overseas in China and vice versa. And it just so happened that a very close video gaming friend of mine through World of Warcraft, he was a childhood friend of Roger Vere's. He had a struggling Bitcoin operation in California. And the reason why I was struggling is because in end of 2013, China actually banned Bitcoin for the very first time.
Yeah.
And the irony of this ban was that it was actually the Western manufacturers of ASICs that actually went out of business first prior to the Chinese ones. So even though it was a China ban on Bitcoin, it ended up being that only the manufacturers that were based in China were the last man standing. So my friend, he reached out to me knowing that I could speak Chinese. I had a background with computer hardware through our gaming experiences together, and he knew that I was savvy with finance. And he told me that, hey, I need someone that can deal with the vendors in China, all the vendors in the US, in Europe, Middle East, Tel Aviv, etc. They'd all gone under. I need someone that can speak Chinese, deal with the Bitmains and the Canaans of the world. He also needed help with someone to manage the books and to kind of deploy equipment. And for me, it checked all the boxes. I get to work with China. I get to leverage my finance background. And my favorite part, I get to work with technology computers. And that's kind of how I fell into Bitcoin mining. And it's been about 10 years now, and I love it so much.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it sounds like maybe you started your journey in the mid curve, but it sounds like you're more on the right side of the curve now, or do you kind of go back and forth?
I think it's
on
much
the left
easier.
side?
It's much easier to take the IQ a little bit lower than it is kind of increase. And I'll be the first to say, when I joined my friend out in California for this Bitcoin mining operation, I realized real quick that, man, like, if only there was a 24/7 distributed decentralized peer-to-peer cash system, we could pay our vendors seamlessly.
Yeah.
Being based in California, realistically, there's only about a 3-day window, Monday through Wednesday, where you can send a wire internationally to China for deposits and for payments of ASIC equipment. And if you don't get it out by Wednesday, that payment isn't getting there until Monday or Tuesday over in China local time. And Bitcoin was the perfect solution, staring us right in the face. And very quickly, it only took a couple months, but I very quickly got orange pilled, appreciate the economics of Bitcoin, deflationary assets, et cetera. And from that, I was very quickly orange pilled. And I haven't looked back since. And that was about 10 years ago.
Yeah. It even today, being in Bitcoin for 8 years now, it never ceases to amaze me how amazing it is, how you could just send money at any moment, at any time of day. It could be 3 a.m. on a Saturday, and you could send your friends some Bitcoin. You don't have to ask for permission from anyone. You just send it, and it gets there immediately. So yeah I could see how that could turn on the lights for you.
Yeah, it's permissionless. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So That's a pretty interesting origin story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
How did, yeah, I was just gonna say, how did you meet David Bailey?
all right. So I think in the early days, especially at Bitcoin conference, there's only a handful of people that were going, right? And David, I met just about 10 years ago. This is 2014, 2015. I think it was at a Miami Bitcoin conference that Mo Levin was putting on. And ever since, David and I, we stayed in touch. We've kept our friendship going, and seeing what he's been building at BTC Inc. And with the recent announcements of Nakamoto and the massive raise they did, it kind of was a no-brainer for me. Actually, the aha moment I had was earlier this year. I was traveling all across Asia. I was dealing with a lot of mining vendors, and I stopped by many different cities in Asia. I was swung by Tokyo, Singapore, Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong. And this was January 2025. It's the very start of this year. And I had numerous people ask me, hey, do you know David? Do you know BTC Inc.?
Yeah.
What do you think about their Hong Kong play? This is right when they were kind of doing the rounds, doing fundraising for Moon Inc. 1723 in Hong Kong. And at the time, I was thinking, wow, they're gonna make a MicroStrategy, a Bitcoin treasury play in Hong Kong. The market's a little underwhelming there, right?
Yeah.
It lacks liquidity. All the ETFs were underperforming. But why is everyone asking about this? To them, I'm just a Bitcoin mining guy. So when they think Bitcoin, they think mining, they're like, oh, maybe Kevin knows something about what David and BTC Inc. or UTXO, what they're up to. So I figured, you know what? I'll just give David a call.
Sure.
I called David, and within a few minutes, I really understood what's the kind of long-term vision of what they're doing at Moon Inc. It was their kind of secret backdoor play into unlocking and unleashing the China mainland market, getting them a product where they can actually invest in Bitcoin. And from there, I was like, okay, this is going to be possibly even bigger than MetaPlanet. I want to get involved in this. Sure. And the more time I spent with David, the more I learned about what they were doing. I realized, wow, I could do this at the mothership at Nakamoto and help them with all their treasury plays around the world.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'd love to hear more about like the boots on the ground sentiment because of the fact that China has gone through several bans, like you mentioned it in the beginning. What does the common person in China think about Bitcoin today?
Yeah, so it's interesting. In mainland China, the fervor for Bitcoin, for crypto, for any of these investments is it's immense. There's a reason why, if you look back historically, a lot of the biggest projects actually originated out of mainland China. I want to say the very first unicorn that actually existed in our entire ecosystem was actually Bitmain. I think this was 2016 or 2017. Bitmain had a $1.4 billion valuation. At the time, that made it the most valuable company within all of Bitcoin, within all of crypto, blockchain, what have you. And for better or for worse, there's also some very immense metrics for some of the projects, both legitimate and scammy. I think back around that time, there were a lot of scam projects like Plus Token, all these other things that were launched, and they completely dwarfed the size and the scope of other kind of scams or rug pulls across the world. And that alone gives an indication of the retail interest and institutional. It's been massive. And with the ban that happened in the summer of 2021, they've been completely cut off from really any assets that are correlated or related with Bitcoin and any cryptocurrencies. So if there actually is a vehicle and it's unlocked for institutions to invest in Bitcoin, it would be a massive home run. And I think we have that through Nakamoto and their position with Moon Inc.
So in other words, you think there's a lot of pent up demand? So
massive.
Yeah. So we got a lot of catching up to do.
Oh yeah.
So you think this could be even bigger in meteoric rise than even MetaPlanet?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you look at the biggest markets in the world, it really is U.S. and China, especially with all the capital that's pent up and the capital flows, capital controls that they have on China. People are yearning for a product that's one, diversified from the limited options they have within China, and that also gives them exposure to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you had mentioned that there's even like demand for shitcoins, and typically the reason why there's demand for shitcoin is because they heard from a friend that the number went up really high just very quickly.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at this is that if you have an actual legitimate asset that's based on Bitcoin, you buy it through a Bitcoin treasury company share. It's kind of like the best of both worlds, where you get that insane price action, and you have the security of Bitcoin underpinning that. So I could see how this could be significantly larger than everything else that's on the market right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially if you go through the right regulatory channels, right, you're able to get institutional adoption of a product. Then retail will feel that much more comfortable. And even the Chinese government can't come around saying that this is a scam, this isn't legitimate. You have massive trust, you have massive funds, hedge funds, what have you, asset managers. They're deploying their capital in this equity that's on regulated exchanges. There's no reason for it to be kind of red flagged or anything like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I could see why you'd want to join this.
Absolutely.
This incredible organization. So beyond that, I mean, what else do you like to do for fun in the space? Like you had mentioned gaming. Are you still active in the gaming space?
Yeah, I wish I had the time with all the different travel.
Yeah.
It's hard to get I'm pretty competitive. I get very locked into my video games. And the issue is when you're traveling to hotels, you may not have the best ping and best latency. But these days, I mean, really what I've realized, having spent about 10 years in the Bitcoin ecosystem, all my friends either orange pilled me further or I orange pilled them.
Yeah.
So it really is kind of like, whether it's the various conferences or travel that I do, it's catching up with friends in all these different locations. One of my favorite places to travel and visit is Tokyo, right? Mm-hmm. I looked back on my passport, looked at all the different stickers. I realized I went to Tokyo 11 times last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even when I try to have like personal trips where I'm kind of not telling anyone I'm going, sometimes a friend ends up finding out like, oh, you got to connect with this guy, you got to connect with that person. And before you know it, I'm hanging out with Wiz from Mempool Space, his office in Roppongi. And for me, it's like, it's one of the most endearing and special parts about kind of the industry we're in, is not only is it something we're all passionate about, we have other friends and people that are like-minded that we can also see all over the world and kind of build beautiful relationships with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm already seeing that. You know, I don't work in crypto. I'm just here.
Yeah.
I'm an ordinary person, right?
You're about to be full-time Naka Nation, all right?
I'm just a normal ordinary guy. And I went for the first inaugural Nakamoto preview night, and it was just it became immediately evident to me the value of this network. So you're talking on community. Mm-hmm. I immediately felt like I was very warmly welcomed and opened the doors like I was at home. And so I do feel like I found a home here in this community, which is why I felt inspired to kick off this podcast immediately, because this network's incredibly valuable, and it does feel comforting when you have a common mission around Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the common mission is a good term, and I think especially with all the BTC treasury players that are popping up now, it's very similar to when I first joined the space and I focused on Bitcoin mining. There's definitely this camaraderie. And there's a lot of co-opetition going on. Mm-hmm. You don't see MicroStrategy at the throats of all these new up-and-coming BTC treasury plays. If anything, they wrote the playbook and they've been sharing it with everyone. Yeah. And everyone's been taking their own interpretations of it, coming out with their unique strategies and whatnot. With Nakamoto, it's the treasury of treasuries, right? Yeah. But going back to the mining space, it's very similar, right? So from the outside looking in, you can, especially 10 years ago, you would say, man, there's only 144 blocks of Bitcoin mined a day. Why would you want more competition to be there? Well, the reality is we're looking to grow the total share of the pie rather than finding our individual piece of it. And I think that same sentiment, the same financial revolution that's taking place, is you can see that exact same sentiment here with BTC Treasury plays.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's incredibly interesting. And I'd like to pick your brain on something, because I see, you know, because I've been in the space since 2017. I've had the privilege of going to a bunch of these conferences and seeing how the space has continued to evolve. I do see the, as broader adoption gets spread around the world, I see it becoming maybe more institutionalized and more serious. How important do you think it is that we keep that original ethos of Bitcoin that was inherently maybe a little silly, definitely a counterculture tint, libertarian? How important do you think that is to keep in the Bitcoin ethos? Or do you think it's just, hey, as it continues to evolve and mass adoption, this is just inevitable and just be okay with it,
Yeah, I think it's very important to capture the original ethos, right? The inclusivity, as well as kind of the silliness. It is magic internet money, right?
Yes.
At the same time, it's unstoppable.
Yes.
And I think it's evidenced by, even myself. I deal with some of the biggest institutions in the world, and I couldn't care less about what I wear to a meeting, right?
Yeah.
I'm wearing shorts today, right?
Yeah.
It's more about being comfortable, right? And realizing that this decentralized instrument, Bitcoin, is available for everyone, right? Whether you're an institution or you're retail, you're a pleb, you're new to the space, or you don't even have that much capital to invest, whether it's through equities or self-custody, right? Bitcoin is there for you to purchase. And I think that's something that's truly special, and it's very, very unique in and of itself.
Yeah. And another part of the original ethos that I don't know if this is just me or if it's being mentioned less, but part of the original ethos is that Bitcoin is for everyone, and we're here to bank the unbanked. So how important do you think that is to keep in the ethos of Bitcoin and also in Nakamoto?
Well, I think it's incredibly important. Like, let's not forget that the title of the white paper is peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Yes.
Right. And even though not everyone needs, or not everyone is kind of tied off from the financial system, many people are. And while Nakamoto is focused on BTC treasury plays, ultimately our goal is to grow the BTC ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're cooking up a lot of different various ideas of not only how do we give back to the community, how do we invest, what potential avenues we're going to diversify into that support Bitcoin. Ultimately, that unlocks opportunities for those that are cut off from the financial system to participate, right? We talked about how anyone can buy Bitcoin as long as they have internet access, right? Even though BTC Treasury Play may not be building the programs or application layers on top of Bitcoin, it'll entice more people to build on it and develop on it when the ecosystem itself grows. Like I mentioned before, it's not about kind of like fighting for your own tiny share of the pie. It's about growing the pie overall.
Absolutely. And what would you tell the common person, specifically in mainland China that has gone through multiple bans and maybe still hesitant? Obviously, from what you had mentioned, there's sounds like a pretty big fervor that would be unlocked, but I don't think that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't imagine that that's going to be everybody. So there's going to be a group of people that are probably still hesitant to get into the space. So what would your message be to that person?
Yeah, I think especially if you're new to Bitcoin, whether you're in mainland China or anywhere else in the world, you got to do your own research. And I think after you've done your own research, you'll find that really the one opportunity out there that differentiates itself is Bitcoin over all the other assets, right? And that includes shitcoins or other cryptocurrencies, whatever else is out there. Make sure you know what you're investing into, whether it's an equity or buying Bitcoin directly. Understand how you're actually funding for it and how you're going to be storing whatever you're purchasing, right?
Yeah.
If it's self-custody, that's great. That's wonderful. If it's through equities, that's great. Make sure you know your on and off ramps as well.
Yeah.
I think that is really critical.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about self-custody because again, going back to that original ethos, the war chant for many years, not your keys, not your coin. It's still around. A lot of I've seen not a lot, but I've seen some pushback on Bitcoin treasury companies for that reason specifically. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and how this plays into the ecosystem for broader adoption.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on this topic because I think there's a very interesting observation I've made over the years that differentiates kind of the East and the West. Whereas in the West, there is this not your keys, not your coins. And there's a mentality of there's a preference to self custody, keep things on hardware wallets. Don't keep things on centralized exchanges. Or even when you look at pie chart of all the different hash rate, you prefer going to a pool that's smaller. You want it to be more decentralized, and have multiple players in the ecosystem. What's interesting in the East, in places like China, Korea, etc., people oftentimes they prefer something that's bigger. They feel like there's strength in numbers, and they they very much think it's too big to fail. Oftentimes, right?
Yeah.
Where people will actually prefer to store their assets with the biggest player, with someone else that has a big track record or has a large portion of the ecosystem or market share in something. And over time, unfortunately, it's burned a lot of people. Right? There's been Babel. There's been numerous exchange hacks, etc. So I think in what we said before, one of my pieces of advice is do your own research. Part of that research is learning how to custody your own coins, right?
Yeah.
If you're not buying equity, if God forbid you're not buying Nakamoto or Moon Inc. or any of our other portfolio investments, that's okay. Just make sure you research how to actually properly buy Bitcoin and how to self-custody it.
Yeah. So beyond just because Bitcoin and Nakamoto are directly correlated, but there's a key difference with Nakamoto where your team, you're going out, and one of the important metrics that you guys are tracking is Bitcoin per share. So I'd love for you to touch on that, the difference of just self custody. You're holding, let's just say as an example, one Bitcoin versus having one Bitcoin equivalent worth in Nakamoto, and how that's going to grow over time.
Yeah, I think the main theme here is whether you're at Nakamoto, you're investing with us, or you're an individual investor and you're trying to self-custody, we all have the same goal. We're trying to stack sats.
Yes.
Right? How do we accumulate more Bitcoin at the end of the day? Whether it's through shares and Bitcoins per share, or it's however you divest and kind of self-custody your own Bitcoins, we're coming up with our own strategies. How do we increase our own Bitcoin stack? And our play, like what we mentioned before, is the treasury of treasury plays, right? While I'm mostly focused on the Asia portfolio companies and kind of our various instruments we have out there, Nakamoto is looking at the entire world. And we're looking at where there's arbitrage and where there's opportunity to leverage the capital markets to kind of really accelerate our accumulation of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Now, it may feel strange and weird because it is an institutional approach, and it is going to be Bitcoin per share on a balance sheet. End of the day, our goal is still to stack sats.
Yeah. So, in other words, you have a team of ninjas that are out there finding additional Bitcoin for all your shareholders and making that Bitcoin stack grow slowly or hopefully rapidly over time, right?
That's it.
So can you get, without giving away any trade secrets, can you get into a little more detail on different ways of how that's going to get done? Like, where is that additional value coming from?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really critical when you look at each of these BTC treasury companies that are popping up is ultimately there needs to be, in various markets, there generally needs to be a business that's supporting the accumulation of Bitcoin. There has to be positive EBITDA that allows for a company to remain solvent and to avoid having to sell its Bitcoin in its Bitcoin stack that's been accumulating. I think one of the reasons MicroStrategy has been so successful has actually been their software business. Even though it gets very little to no attention, it's the positive EBITDA that's been generating at that division of the company that's allowed them to survive the bear markets, right? That where they haven't had to dip into the cookie jar and sell off any Bitcoin. And that is a similar type situation in pretty much any market you're in. I think one of the things that is going to be a little bit scary is ultimately Bitcoin will have its pullbacks. It's very natural in any type of market.
Sure.
Is how did these BTC treasury companies set up their bear market times to avoid having to sell their Bitcoin off? And usually it comes down to, do they have a diversified business line? Do they have something else that's generating net income that can keep the company going through the tough times so that ultimately they can continue accumulating Bitcoin?
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, because I know that kind of just hearing through the grapevine that part of your strategy is actually waiting for the maybe it's not necessarily the bear market, but there's all these treasury companies that are spinning up, Not all of them are created equal. Not all of them know what they're doing and have a deep bench like Nakamoto. So kind of looking 3 steps ahead, thinking that some people are going to over leverage, some people are going to get in trouble, and that you guys are going to be on the lookout for those opportunities. And specifically, you think that there's going to be an opportunity to buy companies at a discount to the net asset value, correct?
Absolutely. So depending on the market, right, we'll be investing in numerous portfolio companies and BTC treasury plays. But in each jurisdiction, we're going to pick one that we're going to really leverage our BTC Inc. Legacy and history, whether it's the conferences or the media arm, the Bitcoin magazine, and really partner with them, leverage their resources to really kind of highlight and spotlight them as the leaders in each of these markets. And like you were saying, we're also going to be opportunistic.
Yeah.
For those that are struggling, maybe it's an M&A deal. Maybe it's maybe it's so far gone that it's not worth salvaging. But oftentimes you'll find where some of these companies, they may be trading at a negative MNAV or a discount.
Yeah.
And those are opportunities, once again, to acquire Bitcoin at a discount.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's our goal. Stack sats, figure out who the best players are to back in each of these different regions, and leverage our expertise and resources that we built up over this past decade.
Absolutely. And it's a no-brainer. And if net asset value, that might be a fancy term. Let's simplify it. Bitcoin's 100,000 today. You're able to buy a company for 85,000. You're buying their Bitcoin at the equivalent of 85,000 instead of paying 100,000 the market price for Bitcoin. You're buying it at 85,000. So you're getting the Bitcoin that company owns for cheaper than the value of the market value. So it's basically legal theft.
Yeah, well, maybe stay away from the theft word, but yes, we're acquiring things at a discount.
Yeah, let's rephrase that. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to go ahead and buy a company at discount to net asset value, because you could just buy up the company, sell off the Bitcoin, and there's an immediate spread to be captured there. There's an immediate profit to be captured there.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what we were previously talking about, if you're able to have a very strong balance sheet, you have cash and reserves, or a stock you can leverage, that's how you navigate these bear markets and downturns when other companies may be struggling, where they may dip into negative MNAVs. That's how you be opportunistic, and that's how you have a war chest ready to kind of dip into these opportunities.
Yeah. And so that's in bear markets. We might be in the super cycle. So how do you create those opportunities when it's up only? How do you find those opportunities?
Right. I think we generate a lot of our own inorganic acceleration through leveraging some of our legacy media plays, like I mentioned before, right? We have Bitcoin Magazine backing us. We have some of the strongest and most reputable key industry leaders, right? David Bailey, his reputation speaks for himself, right? It takes a pretty ballsy and pretty reputable guy to orange pill the president of the United States and embrace Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think it gets any bigger than that.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's like it's our resume, right? It's 10 plus years for a lot of our team members of orange pilling others to join our ecosystem, to join kind of this Bitcoin movement. And it's through various means. Some did it through media. We have Bitcoin Magazine and with the conference team. I did it through the Bitcoin mining space. And it's, I think, having that track record and having this kind of super team that we've assembled to kind of really be opportunistic during the up only markets.
Yeah, that's that's a really good point, because I'm kind of phrasing this like hypothetically, like it hasn't already happened yet. We're in a strong bull market right now, and you guys have uncovered some insanely parabolic opportunities. So you've already, again, I'm asking about this like a hypothetical scenario, but we have several real world examples of how you've executed on this, not in a bear market, in a strong bull market. So to the extent that you feel comfortable, can we get into maybe a little more granular on maybe one of these deals, whether it's MetaPlanet, Moon Inc., whoever you feel comfortable about it? I want to look under the hood and understand how that deal happened.
Yeah, sure. So it's really leveraging and figuring out who the best partners and boots on the ground are, right? And it's part of my responsibility to figure out who those people are that we need to work with and trust. Because not only are we leveraging and staking our own reputation, we're going to be teaming up with others that are local experts to kind of proliferate this Bitcoin treasury play and adoption in these various markets. Let's use Hong Kong, for example, right? We partnered with people that we've worked with, initial investors in BTC Inc. and Bitcoin Magazine, well before Bitcoin treasury plays were even kind of the a la mode, right?
Yeah.
And let's leveraging these relationships and the trust that we built over many years. That's how we feel comfortable with kind of who we're getting in bed with.
Yeah.
And you can see that success play out through a MetaPlanet and what will soon be Moon Inc. and other plays. It's really leveraging the friends we've made along the way to kind of build these super companies.
So, I mean, now that you have a couple successes under your belt, do you think, are they just going to start coming to you, or do you still foresee like really having to go out there and turn over stones and look for opportunities, or maybe it's a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, and it's a virtuous cycle, right? The more successful these treasury plays are in various regions, other regions will come to us and say, help us out too. Like I mentioned before, we're really going to have, I hate to say it, but it's going to be like a favorite child in each of these different capital markets. Now, we'll support many of them, but we're going to have one that we leverage all our resources to spotlight and highlight. And this is not kind of secluded to just Asia. We have the same mindset in Europe, in MENA, the Middle East, and in the Americas, right? We're going to be running this playbook over and over again until we have what we like to think and we're comfortable will be the ultimate leader in each of these capital markets. Yeah.
And do you think, I mean, you got a pretty strong global perspective. Do you think, and you're a little biased, so feel free to check your bias or not at your leisure. But do you think China is the biggest opportunity right now globally in terms of markets that are waiting to pop off, or do you think there's maybe a tie or a close second and third?
Yeah, I think the asterisk to put on all this is if we can execute, and I believe we can. We have the best team to do so. China is the largest untapped market.
Yeah.
This is akin to, let's rewind the clock 6, 7, 8 years ago when Grayscale was the only institutional product in the U.S. that was on NASDAQ listed that institutional investors to get exposure into Bitcoin. That's what we'd have the opportunity to do in China through Moon Inc.
Yeah. Oh, huge. And I'd love to hear a little more about mining specifically, because, you know, right now the hot flashy thing, like you said, the flavor of the day is most certainly Bitcoin treasury companies. It's the clear theme of this cycle. But I'd love to hear about mining specifically. Miners have, for the most part, underperformed. Do you think there's a catch-up period, especially as we dwindle the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges, and it gets close to, you know, all-time low on Bitcoin on exchanges that's available to be sold? The only people that have coins, to new coins coming to the market, are going to be miners. What do you think is the future for the mining industry?
Yeah, I think it's a really solid question, and I think my answers may get a little nuanced. Right now, if you look at equities, mining companies are underperforming a little bit. At the same time, a lot of these mining companies, they got their premiums to NAV, and they got their massive valuations prior to BTC treasury plays really took off.
Yeah.
Mining companies actually were listed well before some of these Bitcoin treasury companies, and they had the luxury of being this vehicle outside of, say, a Grayscale and others out there that give you a leveraged exposure to Bitcoin. So I think that appreciation happened earlier. And what also happened is they matured over time as well. Now you actually have a lot of these mining companies. They aren't even selling the Bitcoins they're mining. They also are accumulating it. They're stacking their sats as well. They're putting it into their treasuries. But what I think is unique about mining companies, like you mentioned, it's their ability to mine their own Bitcoin, but there's also their ability to control hash rate. And hash rate allows you to get block space. Right now, even though transactions may be a little bit low on Bitcoin and the mempool is emptying every few days, every few weeks, the reality is when things really heat up and retail piles on and there's activity on chain, whether it's degen stuff or not, whether it's all the DeFi stuff that's being built on Bitcoin, the reality is block space is going to be very limited. And that's going to come with a premium. Not only can you mine Bitcoin with your hash rate, you can also allocate and figure out how you want to divvy off your hash rate to allow certain transactions to go on. You can accelerate transactions, right? You can pick and choose really how you want to leverage your hash rate in addition to just being able to mine Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, I saw a little smile there when you mentioned the block space getting filled up. So let's dive into that a little more. Sure. What are your thoughts on ordinals and inscriptions, all this kind of stuff that's happening in the ecosystem, and keeping the space a little fun and lively?
All right, I'm gonna draw back to what we said earlier. Bitcoin's for everyone.
Yes.
All right. And if someone's paying a fee on a transaction, that's not spam, right? If they can afford it, if they spend it, and if they don't pay enough, it just kind of gets stuck on the mempool and it waits for its turn. If they pay a premium, it should go earlier. And ultimately, if you don't like how certain Bitcoin transactions either are or aren't being filtered on chain, then you should go and get some of your own hash rate. Yeah. Then you can dictate how that block space is used. And that's alluding back to the previous question of kind of the additional value proposition of these mining companies, right? That hash rate is going to be even more valuable in just the Bitcoin they can produce. It'll also dictate how block space that they kind of can control can be used as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. If I want to put a funny picture of a monkey on chain, then that should be right. If I'm willing to pay for it, and if today the cost of that is whatever it is, $20, then so be it. And if tomorrow it's $100,000 and I still want to do it, then that's my prerogative.
Yeah, the irony of it all is, even though some may look at it, may not take it so seriously, like you're putting a JPEG of a goofy monkey on chain, you're paying a very substantial fee to do so. And that fee goes directly into the security budget of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly asked, like, well, over time with each halving, isn't the block subsidy and isn't the security budget going to be dwindling? Well, this is how it can play out with the transaction fees really skyrocketing with activity on chain, where that subsidy from the transaction fees is actually going to drive some of the security budget for Bitcoin itself.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on taking some of that activity and moving it up to a second layer?
I think there's plenty of work that's being done there. I don't consider myself an expert, but end of the day, even these layer twos and even a lot of these DeFi projects, these Bit VMs, whatever else is being developed on kind of the Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem, it ultimately needs to tie back on chain. Yeah. Right. And that on chain activity is going to be very unique demand for block space. And it goes back to all the previous topics we talked about. They have to kind of go back and fill up the original on chain layer one block space. And that's going to be very exciting because end of the day, I'd rather have DeFi on Bitcoin. This is me personally. I'd rather have DeFi on Bitcoin than all these other shitcoins out there.
I completely agree. I quite frankly, I don't understand how, I do believe there's a little bit of a cognitive dissonance of saying, hey, Bitcoin is freedom money. And at the same time, no, you're not allowed to do this in Bitcoin. Yeah. Why not?
Exactly.
So yeah, freedom money. Any message that you'd like to give to the Naka Nation here? We got a lot of people tuning in. They're excited about your recent joining of Nakamoto. So you got a captive audience here. What do you want to tell the people?
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be part of the Nakamoto team. I'm flattered to be kind of considered as one of the team members of the super team that David has assembled. And really, for those out there, you're never going to see anyone work as hard as me to kind of help pump our bags over in Asia. I'm going to leverage all the experience I've kind of built up over the years, whether it's in Asia or across the world, to kind of figure out who the best players are in Asia to roll up into Nakamoto.
Incredible. Adding to the Bitcoin per share stack.
That's right.
Every day, a little more Bitcoin.
You got it.
That helps me sleep soundly at night, knowing that you're out there. While I'm sleeping, you are just busting your tail out there, making sure that I could get just a little more Bitcoin. So thank you for your service to the Bitcoin community. Thank you for your service to the Nakamoto community. Thank you for joining us here at Naka Nation. It's been an absolute pleasure, Kevin.
You got it, Carlos.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me.